let's get into Tennessee's offensive line because this is something we're going to dive into. And if you haven't checked out Cooper Mays and his thoughts this week on the first week of practice, you should do that on the YouTube channel. Please hit that like and subscribe button. We greatly appreciate that. Make sure your notifications are turned on. So here's what we know about Tennessee's offensive line right now. Cooper Mays, hands down your starter at center. Depth would probably be Addison Nichols that I would think at this point. Left tackle is going to be John Campbell Jr. as a starter. Now, it gets interesting after that in the tackle position because I think it's going to be Crawford on the right side at this point. We're very early in the camp, but from what I'm told, he's the guy there with the first team. Again, this is early. This could change. Okay. We're the first week of fall camp, basically. Then you have Gerald Mincey, who is the backup at probably both tackle positions. That to me is a little bit of a concern because Gerald Mincey is talented enough where I think he should have grabbed one of the starting positions. So that tells me that Tennessee's coaches aren't 100% confident. Then I think you have Dane Davis that's kind of in that mix. And I've been told not to rule him out as well. So what do you think of Tennessee's tackle position right now where it stands? Again, early in camp, but how disconcerting is it that and he may still end up doing it, but I really thought that Mincey would make a stronger push at Crawford at right tackle, but it looks like it's going to be Crawford. Your thoughts on that position and tackle in general, Caleb?
Yeah, I think it's a concern. Largely, one, because of depth, because of what you brought up with Mincey, but two, Jeremiah Crawford's the type of guy that you're right, commands a lot of respect in the locker room. He's the fundamental. You trust him as a veteran, but he's not going to win the battles with Will Anderson on a play-by-play basis when you face Alabama. And that, by the way, Alabama is just as loaded at edge rusher this year as they were last year. And like that's again, he is you almost want to do like it's like the quarterback that can do what he needs to do, but if it's turning into a 300-yard passing game shootout, you can't really trust him at that moment. Not that you don't like Jeremiah Crawford, but he's just not winning those battles, guys. And so you wanted Mincey to emerge, and he didn't. And I think that is a big concern, the lack of depth. Funny enough, I'm not as concerned about guard because I think Ollie Lane or Dane Davis. I mean, I think guard is one of those spots where, like, veteran leadership and experience, you can plug a guy in one of those areas. I mean, Jerome Carvin was that. So I think they'll be okay at guard. But, yeah, John Campbell Jr. is not as much of a concern at left tackle. I think he won the job. I don't think it was anything anybody didn't do. You can probably tell more about that than I can, but from what I understand, he just won the job straight up.
Yeah, but I think they wanted him to win the job. Yeah, so okay. I think that's the way they set him up in the offseason, but I don't think there's, from what I'm told, any uncertainty about him winning the job. So, yes, they put him in the best race car. They put him in the best position to do that, and he's done it. You mentioned the guard position. I think Tennessee's good with Javontez, Spraggins at right guard. And then at left guard, whether it's Ollie Lane, as you mentioned, or Andre Courig, who could be a guy that steps in there, or maybe Addison Nichols. You do play some at that left guard position, but I think they want to make sure he's healthy to be the backup center because Cooper Mays, let's remember this, he's not undersized anymore, but when he was undersized, he had injury concerns. So I think that's something that you always want to be aware of. So have Addison Nichols ready to go. But across the offensive line, I think early you still should have questions because if you don't have depth. I think Tennessee has questions there, and it's not a great situation at right tackle like they would have drawn it up. But as far as first week done in preseason camp, I think Tennessee's in a good trajectory. I just can't say that they're there yet. But in all fairness, Caleb, with Darnell Wright, we didn't know Tennessee was, quote, there yet. He ended up being a much better player than anybody had projected.
I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I got a lot of things wrong last year. I expected that type of season from Darnell Wright, and I was touting him ahead of time.
You had him as a first-round NFL draft pick, though?
No, not as a first-round NFL draft pick, but I did have him as Tennessee's most valuable player last year, entering last year. I was very big on that. I had him above Hendon Hooker and above I didn't see Jalen Hyatt. I'll be honest with you guys. I thought Jalen Hyatt was going to be a complete bust. I did not see that at all. So I'm not sitting here saying like, oh, I knew this and I'm so smart. Okay, I didn't. But I did see Darnell Wright because I knew that what I had known was that they had him at left tackle the year before because they needed him at left tackle, and that they moved him to right tackle, not because of a need at right tackle, but because that was his most natural position. So I knew that they were letting him play where he was most comfortable. This year, I'm not seeing that. I'm not getting that same vibe. I'm getting we just have to fill these spots because we don't really have people who can fill them yet.
Robert Rexroad asks, is this year's new first down rule change going to slow us down, referring to Tennessee? I don't really think so, because it's whether or not you can make substitutions during those plays. So I think you will have a cumulative perhaps effect if you're only able to run 70 plays instead of 80 plays. But as far as the tempo that goes within a drive, it might slow Tennessee's opposition down a little bit where they can catch a blow, catch a little bit of wind. But I don't think it's going to be a huge monstrous change in the way college football looks, which not only Tennessee fans, but college football, they don't want that, Caleb. They like the tempo. They like the way the game flows. I mean, it's something that you don't want to monkey around with right now.
Yeah, and again, this stuff is really only a factor in the final 2 minutes of games when you're trying to use every second. And the final 2 minutes, the clock's still going to stop. So I don't think this is as big of a deal. Look, I know Tennessee runs tempo, but Tennessee's no different than any other program in that in the middle of the first quarter, they don't care how the clock is running after they get a first down. They really don't. They just, it's going to be the same tempo no matter what. So, yeah, I don't think it's going to be a big deal.
Well, and Tennessee, we said this last year, and we were right. They started to do it at the end of the season. They need a couple of those 4-minute drills. They need a couple of those to help their defense, and this might be able to do so.